Sandy Rose is a licensed psychotherapist, a sex and relationship therapist, and the founder of Sandy Rose Therapy, where she specializes in helping individuals and couples reconnect with their authentic selves and build more honest, fulfilling relationships. With a truly compassionate and non-judgmental approach, Sandy blends psychodynamic therapy, somatic awareness, and trauma-informed care to explore how past experiences shape present-day intimacy. She's particularly passionate about helping people feel safe enough to explore their desires, to challenge shame, and to create connection from a place of truth and vulnerability. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's very, very kind of you to give it this time. One of the words you said almost before we started recording was communication, and how much you enjoy communicating. And I do think that's one of the big things that comes up so often whenever I talk to people about intimacy is how do you better communicate. So I think communication will probably be a theme that runs through our conversation. But I did want to sort of take you back a little bit and understand what were your formative years like? What were you like growing up? Were you very close to your own intimate feelings? Were you emotionally vulnerable? Were you very open? Can you sort of draw a link between the person you were then and who you are today?
Yeah, I kind of always describe myself as I was asleep until I was like 30, and then I've had like kind of a rebirth. I'm very different than how I was growing up. I was really, really quiet, very introverted. I I don't have too many memories from growing up, oddly, um, and I would say that I wasn't closely tied to you know intimacy or expression of feelings. I was very closely tied to deep feeling of feelings, very
Mhm.
sensitive. I'm still a really sensitive person. Um, and I've grown into the understanding that sensitivity is a strength. And I'm, emotions might be the thing I value most in the world, honestly. And so growing up for me, I was raised in a home that we didn't really talk about, well, we did not talk about sex or relationships. I didn't have a great model of what a loving relationship was. Not that it was harmful or dangerous or a bad model, just that, I never really saw expression of um, saying I love you or, watching my parents kiss or anything like that. And so when I got my first boyfriend in high school, it was kind of like my first glimpse of like what it could be like and exciting in a new kind of way that I could be. But again, it wasn't until my 30s really that I fully dived into kind of my current intimate self that's connected to like sensuality and sexuality and expression of emotions.
So the obvious question then is, what was it that woke you up when you were 30? I'm guessing it wasn't a prince or princess's kiss. You're not Cinderella. So what was it when you were sort of 30 or that sort of age that thought, actually, yeah, I think there's more to it than this?
Yeah, I got divorced at
Okay.
30. So I got married really young at 23, and then throughout growth and finding my new self and discovering hobbies and moving to LA, things like that, I, my ex and I grew apart. And after I got divorced, which I always say is kind of the best choice I ever made for me and probably for him as well. Then I started to date and explore new hobbies and explore new sides of myself. And there was this whole world that I just didn't even know existed underneath the pattern repetition that I was engaged in. I just got married and was just kind of moving on autopilot through my life. And then I was finally like, oh, I can make choices and make mistakes and express myself and be a different type of person that I never thought I could be growing up.
Hmm. So when you started dating initially, and then when you found your partner and then got married, at that stage, were you very in tune with your own body and desires? Did you know what you enjoy, what you like, what made you feel good? Not just in a physical way, but emotionally as well. Or is that something that came much later as well?
Yeah, I don't think I was. I think I was, again, just like very like tuned out,
Mm-hmm.
autopilot, not really in touch with what I wanted. I think there was little glimpses of it.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've always been really sensitive. And so I think that I was experiencing my environment, but in a way where I didn't feel truly capable of interacting with it fully like I do now. And so, no, I was definitely not in touch with what I wanted. And, looking back, I'm like, that's such a bummer. I just love fully living in the expression of self now, which is the work that I bring into
Yeah, yeah.
working with my clients, where I'm like, let's get you fully connected to actually what you want instead of maybe what you were taught either by parents or society or your friends or someone external from you growing up.
Mm. Yeah, it makes complete sense. It's funny. I don't have many memories at all from growing up, and you're the first person that said the same thing, really. So I talked to my wife, and oh my goodness, she could almost, not by the day, but she knows very, very, she can see very, very clearly things that happened and how she felt and all those things. Yeah, I have a couple of memories from, yeah, childhood, maybe a memory or two at school, but apart from that, all of it's hidden, really. Not hidden, just doesn't exist. So part of me always wonders, gosh, is there something that I'm trying not to remember?
Mm.
Do you ever feel that? 'Cause if you don't have those memories, is it a case of something we just subliminally pushed to one side, or we sort of locked deep away, or do we just not remember things?
Right. I think that's certainly part of it, where it's like, I bet that a lot of people will be like, yeah, I don't know anything from before I was 6 or whatever, just
Hmm.
because maybe it was a long time ago. But also to your point of like, is there something I don't want to remember? I think at least, excuse me, I can speak for my experience. I think I was dissociated for a lot of my childhood,
Yeah.
and I'm not even gonna like put it on any like specific trauma or anything like that. I think that for me, um, I felt like I couldn't fully express myself emotionally or be myself just because I don't think that there was the infrastructure in my
Hmm.
home, the confidence, the reflection of emotions for it to be kind of a safe space. Not that it was unsafe, but I think that something in me told me, hey, shut down a little bit, go into your own world. Um, don't fully see what's around you because it doesn't feel, again, I'm going to use the word safe, not that it was
Yeah,
unsafe,
yeah.
like a fully safe environment to express myself.
Mm.
And so I think that, yeah, if there's a lack of memory, it could point to potentially not wanting to see something, and kind of the body's mechanism of, or the brain's mechanism of protecting itself from perceived threat of some sort.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I do remember is my, I guess, and again, it wasn't a bad household. It wasn't a bad childhood, nothing like that at all. My parents were married and didn't get divorced, stayed together. And but I remember, and I was going to use, and I probably will use the word, sort of escaping into books. I just used to read all the time, and I could literally open up a book and immediately be in the book. Not sort of just reading the words, but I could feel whether it be an incredible fantasy story or a space story or a cowboy story, whatever it was. I was literally in that character's shoes, and that was my yeah, that was my space really, because nobody else can get into that book. Nobody else can, even if you read the same book, nobody else is seeing it the same way. And that was, yeah, I grew up in an age where it was pretty still, especially in the UK. It was still children should be sort of seen and not heard, sort of thing. Not quite as bad as that, but whereas now, yeah, there's no chance of not of not hearing my children, which is perfect. But at the time, I think going into these books, and I could go anywhere, could go any time, I could go to any place, I could explore any sensation, and yeah, I was just such a voracious reader. It really, yeah, opened me up. I think a little bit, far more than my physical life and living what I was doing did. because that was quite dull and quite tedious. But the reading books and going into those different worlds was really, it was really exciting.
So you must really thrive in like imaginative spaces.
Yeah, yeah. I have a very I have very strong and deep dreams, and there's nothing worse than hearing about someone else's dreams. It's so tedious. I'm not going to agree with them, but very, very visceral, and most of them aren't necessarily very nice dreams. They're just very, very specific. And then imagination, I can sort of sit, and that's why I find meditation really hard, because my mind always goes somewhere. I go, no, stop it. Just think. Just think of nothing. I find it really impossible. But imagination and creativity and thinking is just such a you can be anywhere. You can literally any age in the future, in the past. You can be anybody. You can feel anything. I just think it's such a wonderful tool.
It is great.
So there's not really a question now. I'm not sure why I told you that, but just it just felt like it had to come out.
No, that's
So
great.
books for me and reading and not so much listening to things, not really music, but books and things are my really big thing. So
Mm,
so when you um, made the decision to divorce, which I'm sure was difficult at the time, and I'm sure that wasn't a very pleasant sort of process to go through. But on the other side of it was this almost new playground where you could try new things. You could go to new parties, you go to new restaurants, you could have new partners, try different things, all that sort of stuff. How did you then? Because that's a huge step from where you were when you were pre-marriage and in your marriage, but it still feels like there's another big step between exploring and giving yourself permission to be open and enjoy life, if you like, to then becoming the person you are now, which is helping other people guide them in a much more positive way, so they didn't have to go through all the difficulties you had. So, what pulled you into the sort of sex therapy and the intimacy coaching and the guidance and all those things?
Yeah, it was exactly. I like how you said the permission to explore because I did not feel like I had that growing up. And in fact, like in my marriage, I always felt like kind of a, not in a creepy way, but a parent child dynamic where
Yeah,
I was like kind of always following his lead type of a thing. And so after divorce, I started dating and, sleeping with new people and having experience and exploring my sexuality and exploring my autonomy and independence and strength and womanhood and all of these things, just kind of stepping into who I am now, who I wanted to be, who I always could have, should have been. Really powerful place, right? But it definitely came with some speed bumps along the way.
yeah,
Um, and through those speed bumps, which was like, uh, sexual health issues or relational issues or just learning more about myself or society, because again, I was just opening my eyes to all these things. Um, that is when I learned just a lot about sexuality, self expression, dating, relationships. And I was just realizing that it's just not talked about enough. A lot of people are on autopilot. A lot of people don't make intentional choices with their life. And also, they don't feel free to explore sexuality or step into that part of themselves. And I say they as in, it's kind of a generalized statement and it's from my own experience, but
mm,
I have definitely found that in my work with people. And so it's been validated and confirmed. And so through all of that, I realized that I really wanted to just be that person, be that support for other people who might be um, questioning whether, you know, thinking about their own shame or fearing parts of themselves that they were uncovering. Um, and then a big part of it was so during my marriage, uh, really not a great sex life, honestly. For me, I had chronic sexual pain. And after I got out of the marriage, completely went away. So I realized that it was psychosomatic. And so that was a huge part of it for me, too, where I was like, I want to help women who are struggling with that and kind of get them to see that part of it, yeah, part of it's gynecological or deals with pelvic floor physical therapy, but part of it is like totally, again, psychosomatic. Like, let's talk about, are you freely expressing yourself? Are you happy in your relationship? What's the communication like? What's your own self-love and image like? Can you just be yourself? It's really linked to that. So
Yes.
there was that aspect of it where I wanted to reach other women going through this. And because I had the marriage model that I had from my parents growing up, I always found myself as a kid wanting to be like, looking at my parents are arguing or not arguing or just having an energy between them and being like, can you see that she's saying this? Can you say that he's saying this? And kind of like mediate there. And
Yeah.
so that's another part of my work too, where I'm like, let's talk about communication and relationships. Let's talk about feelings, I statements, like working together. You're a team. Let's externalize the problem. So there's couples issues and there's sexual dysfunction, and it's all related back to like authentic expression of self. And so it
Mm.
just connected really beautifully. So from the time that I started grad school to be a therapist, like the first class I signed up for was that human sexuality and intimacy course, because I was like, I know that that's my path that I want to take.
That's fabulous. Can I ask? And if you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but what? So if you obviously were having sex with your husband, and you obviously had a deep connection before you got married, you didn't just marry him sort of randomly. So why didn't you explore what was making sex uncomfortable and not enjoyable during the marriage? Why was it after the marriage that you realised this is something you wanted to address?
Well, during the marriage, I knew nothing different.
Okay.
It was just kind of like always painful. And I know more about, it's called vaginismus. I
Yeah.
know more about it now. But I thought that that was going to have to deal with that my whole life. And so again, it was one of those things where I was kind of stuck in that mindset of like, oh, well, this is my life, can't fix it, can't change it. It was really just that stuck place,
Yeah.
which getting out of that was like, oh my God, like there's actually solutions for pretty much everything, and it's
Yeah.
just about like how you look at it. I just don't think I even had access to the thinking that I could really change it.
I think that's one of the big problems, is I think as a society and in our generalized media, that sex in general is seen as penis in vagina, ejaculate, and that is sex. So even when you talk about it as a younger person, it's sort of, have you had sex? Have you done it? Did you give it to her? Did you take her? It's very much a physical ownership. So yeah, you've just screwed her, you've taken her, whatever. You put your penis in a vagina. That's what sex is. And I think what I what helped me understand it more is that when I talk to some people doing this podcast, is if you sort of replace the word sex with pleasure, it just feels completely different. And like you were saying, so physical intercourse might have been uncomfortable, but then, well, where am I going to get pleasure from? And I think that's interesting for me, because it's sort of at my age, sometimes it's harder to get an erection, and sometimes it's harder to be not as hard as I was for as long as I was when I was 20 or whatever. So if I sort of think, oh, well, I can't have sex tonight, it's sort of, yeah, it puts a big barrier between me and my partner. But then if we sort of think, well, why don't we just why don't we pleasure each other? It just feels very different emotionally, that you're not building up to this thing. Even the word we talk about foreplay, which is foreplay is great, but it's always like before the main event. It's almost like the starter. So what are you gonna have before the main course? So we'll have this foreplay thing. I'll get that out of the way, then we'll have the. But if foreplay is the whole thing, you can kissing somebody for half an hour, just looking at somebody, holding them, stroking them, massaging them, brushing their hair, whatever, are all incredibly pleasurable things. And as I get more informed, it feels that that's what sex is. That sex is pleasure. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if there's a question
Yes.
there, but just does that feel like it makes sense?
Oh, yeah, totally. And
Okay.
yeah, you're super informed. I'm so glad to hear that your relationship has reached that status where it's like, oh, we can actually redefine sex completely. It's
Yeah.
not PIV. It's like, think about all of the queer folks in existence who
Yeah.
have non-PIV sex all the time. And think about, like, people who are differently abled and like
Mhm.
have different types of access to pleasure. And your point about foreplay, yes, I'm like always talking with couples about that because it's like a lot of, especially in the heterosexual script for sex,
Mm.
foreplay is like, man goes down on her, she maybe comes, she gets, wet, and then they have PIV, and then
Yeah.
he comes, and then maybe she does, like that's part of it
That's a script, isn't it? That's a
too.
script that we've been led to believe is what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And it sometimes is like a revelatory thing to talk to couples about this and be like, you can make it whatever you want. Foreplay can not never stop. You know what I mean? It can be
Yeah.
nonstop. It's just all day. Like from the moment you wake up, like you said, eye gazing, like send a dirty text throughout the day, get them flowers, that can be foreplay. Like,
Yeah.
let's rethink it. If you're in kind of an erotic state all the time, which is like, uh, you have access to your sexual persona, your sexuality, it's innate, it's integrated as part of you, then yeah, you never have to stop being in a state of foreplay. And that is definitely something that I like to talk about with clients who have like low desire, and that's like a relative term, of course.
Yeah.
But if they identify as being low desire, then it's the conversation of like, well, what are you maybe doing to, where's your brain focused, right? Like, are you thinking about just work, just your stress, just health issues, just like, and that's fine. And you don't have to be in a sexual space all the time. But if you want to be, there's things that you can be doing to get yourself there so that it's more easily accessed.
Mm.
And to your point, let's change the definition of sex so that it doesn't have to be something that maybe
Yeah.
you dread. Maybe it's not fun. Maybe it's
Yeah.
not, like you said, pleasure centered. Because
Yeah.
so much of sex, or especially PIV sex, is really orgasm centric. It's like, it's just not, it creates like this goal that feels like it's, oh, I gotta achieve that, or it doesn't even count, and then you talk about like, the couple will be like, well, yeah, we went down on each other and then we had sex. I'm like, you already had sex,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah. But
it's
that's what we're, and not even programmed. That's what we almost absorb through osmosis, through the media, through our friends, through the common
yes.
parlance of what we talk about. Really, it's not that we, it's not that people are thinking anything wrong when they think that. It's just that, well, that's what, yeah, that's what it is really. But that exactly as you said. That I think the thing with PIV is that there is a very defined start and end to it. And if I don't ejaculate, if I lose my sort of hardness, my erection halfway through, then there's a very very quick feeling of I failed, I haven't succeeded, and then the next time when you think, okay, well, part of your mind is thinking, oh gosh, last time, and what's going to happen then? It's like with the vaginal thing. Well, last time it was so tight and so painful. It's not suddenly going to be, oh, this time it'll be fine. Our minds don't work that way. We bring with us what's happened previously, and I think one of the big issues, certainly, well, when I was at school, sex ed was we got taught about STIs. We got taught about showed how to put a condom on a banana, and yeah, that was pretty much it. So I talk to my children now at 15 and 18, assuming that it's going to be so much better now, and it's going to be much more about intimacy and relationships and all those things. No, they're talking more about consent now, which is super important and incredibly valuable. But in terms of, I said, well, what do you talk about when they talk about intimacy and desire and feelings and yeah, they and they're very comfortable talking to me, which is great, and I'm very comfortable talking to them. But I think as we get older, then when we haven't had that, when it's not a part of our education, and something you have on your website, which I really like, is the importance of creating a safe space even for the conversation. What I think you mean by safe space, forgive me if I get this wrong, is that it's not safe in terms of physically safe. It's safe in terms of me saying to my partner, no, that thing we've done where I lick your toes last 20. I've never really liked that. Or me saying, I've always wanted to try and be, I've always felt like being more submissive sometimes. I've always thought about maybe some rope play or something else, and not your partners and then go, oh my God, what? You pervert. He's trying to create that space where you can have the conversation and the other person is hearing you, but not judging you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's how, so I guess my question is, if you've been in a relationship, and it could be 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, depending on who you are, and you might not have had a conversation along those lines for a long time, if ever. You started off, you had intimacy, you had sex, you figured out what you thought you enjoyed back then. But we all change over time, emotionally and physically. How do you almost broach the conversation without making your partner feel that you're unhappy or you're looking for a divorce or whatever? How do you have that? Because I think it's important to have the discussion.
Absolutely right. And I think that that's a huge fear that a lot of people have. They're like, sex feels like I can't even talk about it with my partner
Yeah.
because it's such a heavy topic. I don't want them to take it the wrong way. I don't want them to think that I've been unhappy all these years and now I'm coming out with something and I've been hiding it from them, you know. And it because it involves literal like nudity, exposing of ourselves, our
Mm.
bodies, our insides, everything. It is truly so vulnerable to talk about. And if that couple doesn't have the base level of, like you said, emotional safety, where I can confront you or bring something up without feeling judged or like you think I'm judging you, just that open ground, it's going to be really hard to broach
Mm.
those conversations, like you said. Um, and so if when I have couples present with that type of issue, which again is all the time,
Mm.
it's it's kind of like breaking them down to get to that basis of vulnerability, like, hey, what's behind that really guarded reaction that you're having right now? That anger, that fear, that judgment, that this type of thing. Can we release that? What's under it? Is it fear? Is it sadness? Is it guilt? What is it? You know, and just like slowing down for a second, um, expressing again that honest expression, authentic self coming forward. Can I be honest with you for a minute? um I also really like to say, like, bring it into the room, have a meta conversation about the conversation you're having, right? Starting out slow where it's like, hey, I've got something to say. It's really hard for me to say. And I think that you might have XYZ type of reaction. What I don't want to happen is I don't want you to feel sad or like I'm mad at you. What I do want to happen is I want to connect with you and I want to be honest because I value this relationship, right? Having that type of base, like, this is for us, babe, type of a thing. Like, this is not me against you. This is for the better. I hope you can hear me. I really like to lead couples through that because I think that's a really good skill to have in a relationship. And I also don't think, like you said, it's not taught. Obviously, sex ed is not going to be like, here's how to have a conversation about your kinks in the bedroom. Like, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I think getting to the vulnerable space that you feel like talking and then just like working that muscle of, again, like you said, communication is going to be the through line today because it really
Mm.
is, of like, how can I bring my inside outside and express it to you and have you contain it? And how the heck do we even create a safe enough, like you said, environment to even have that conversation? Because a lot of people have their walls up, they're so guarded, it's really hard to break through. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
struggle.
Because it immediately part of you is a bit like, it's not like it at all, but it, you I've always got my partner this meal once a week that I thought she always loved. And at some point, she sort of blurts out, "Oh, I've never liked that meal. Can we have something else?" I'm like, "Oh, criticizing cooking, criticizing how you want." You feel that you're being criticized, but even when you were explaining how to get to that vulnerable stage, it felt very reassuring and safe, the words and tone you were using. So I do really, and it sounds odd in a way, but I'm really, really grateful that people have the willingness to explore, to go and talk to you. So I think having that expert third person guide, non-critical, non-judgmental person in the room, virtually or in real life, makes it so much easier when you're not just the two of you there. Because I think sometimes what I feel happens is that I might have been thinking about something for a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, thinking about, oh, I really, really wanted to be tied up, or I really wanted to tie you up, or whatever. And typically that will just sort of come out all of a sudden. Next time, can we tie each other up? And you sort of, oh, but you're sort of forgetting. Well, no, no, no. You're a year in this journey. You've looked at books. You've looked up shibari. You've seen all this stuff. My partner's doing it for the first time, so it's probably very unlikely they're going to be. Oh yeah, yeah, that'd be great. Unless they've been thinking about it as well. So it's almost where, how do you get each other to the same place on the journey? Because one of you is having your mind, or I really think we should bring the third person into the bedrooms. What? What? Okay. And you've been thinking about it for so long, and then even worse when you say, "Yeah, I've been really thinking. What about Sandra? What?" And it's you've really you've gone down a long way before even having the discussion. So and I do think, and you said the word a few times now, that sadly I think shame is a recurring theme around some of the things that people think of as sex or pleasure. And how can people be helped to break down the shame or stigma when it comes to, well, first of all, talking about sex and pleasure, and then enacting the things that they might want to try?
Yeah. I think that shame and stigma are taught.
Okay.
And so, we're not birthed into this world being like, oh my God, I have to hide my
Yeah.
labia, like,
Yeah.
or my penis is too small or anything like that.
Mm.
And so it really kind of starts with that space of a little bit of psychoeducation and a little bit of, hey, let's look at the ways that you have been affected, as we all have, by society and by
Mhm.
standards and by what values you were taught growing up and what things you were taught to fear. Um, and it could stem from like religion and like morals
Mhm.
or like the neighborhood or just what your people around you deemed as normal and good. And some people are able to escape that and be like, actually, I really like, my body as it is, or I don't think that this kink is weird because I really like it. They can have that confidence and self love and self assuredness kind of baked in. And that can come from also good parenting, or a healthy attachment style or something like that. But for people that do struggle with shame and stigma, um, a lot of it is just from what they were taught. And so it's kind of a little bit of a process of just unlearning and
Mhm.
then a lot of self compassion, right? It's like if you have a problem with a body part, a lot of clients will struggle to even look at themselves naked in the mirror because there's so much shame there. It's like my, they're saying like my shame is a protective wall against the fact that I think my body is bad or that I think I'm bad. And so my shame is going to come up to protect me and be like, yeah, you're right. It's really bad. You shouldn't look at it, type of a thing. But it's like, if we take that away, what happens when we look at ourselves in the mirror? What happens when we um, pleasure ourselves for the first time or think about that thing that we think is like too dirty to think about and then but we actually like it? It's like, what happens? Is it fear? Like, are we blocking scary emotions that come up? Because it's really hard to feel those vulnerable emotions a lot of the
Yeah.
time. So then it's like, okay, let me sit with you during that really really hard emotion. It's hard, right? And it's a process of like reparenting a little bit, of like, let me hold your hand while you feel this. It's okay. and what happens after you make it through the other side? Do you actually enjoy this a little bit? Is that okay?
Mm.
Can we challenge that? And so I really just like to look at all those thoughts in like a gentle way and just be like, that's okay. You're not doing anything like illegal or morally reprehensible right now. So it's fine, like it's okay to have that kink. It's okay to have that body part that you think is a little different from society's standards. And maybe it's a good thing, even, then we can get to that point where it's like,
Yeah.
we enjoy it now. So, yeah, it's like the stripping down of it all, unlearning, and then just like building up from the inside out, I think.
Mm. Yeah, I read a stat, and I can't remember the number, but it was a much, much higher number than I ever imagined, was the percentage of women that hadn't looked at their vulva in a mirror. It was extraordinary. So as a guy, it's there really. You
There,
sort of
yeah.
see it, and we're obsessed with it. Our hands are down our trousers all the time. If when we were a kid, and well, first of all, you get hand slapped and we told that's dirty, it puts you off, and that does trigger other things. But as a woman, as a girl, typically it's yeah. Because I've talked to some friends who are girlfriends, and then one of the things you sort of think as a guy is that, oh, well, all women love it when I go down on them. That's me really giving something to them, whatever. And quite a few people I've talked to, women, are sort of like, it makes me really uncomfortable because I really can't believe he would actually enjoy that. I can't believe he would enjoy doing that to me. So they feel really tense, and you're thinking as a guy, this isn't. They don't feel like they're getting much wetter. They're not. She's not coming. What am I doing wrong? And she's thinking, why are you down there? I really don't like it. And it's yeah, just that sensation of not knowing what people think. And I think part of that, especially now, is, as I said, my son's 15, daughter's 18, and I think the average age that kids now access hardcore porn is sort of 13, which is a long time before they really understand fully what a relationship or intimacy really is. And if you were to look at, I guess, standard porn as opposed to feminist porn or holistic porn, which some of it's very beautiful and incredibly well filmed and it's very attractive. If you look at the standard porn clips in particular, you would first of all assume that no woman has a hair on her body apart from on her head. Most women are quite happy to take multiple partners. The guy lasts forever and comes pints at a time and has a huge and hard erection and go from position to position and everybody's happy and makeup stays in place and it's all perfect.
Hmm.
And vaginas, vulvas in lots of porn, you could describe them as being quite neat. And then when you might look at yours or look at your penis, and oh gosh, my penis isn't 8 inches. My labia hangs lower than that. My clitoris isn't exposed. Yeah, you have that. It's natural that we compare ourselves, especially when you're quite young and you're just trying to figure out what on earth these body parts all do. Do you have people coming to you with that they're informed by, and it can be social media, traditional magazines, body image, performative driven sex, and then porn, and that's almost created the view they have of what they should be doing. And how do you, yeah, how do you get through all that? Because it's a massive noise that we're hearing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And like, speaking to the whole, like women being like, oh, I'm actually uncomfortable when he goes down
Mm.
on me. A lot of clients deal with that. Um, and we can see that from like, even like, I don't know, like magazines in the 90s that were like, douche your vulva, or they would say vagina,
Yeah,
like make it smell nice. And it's like, what?
yeah,
Like, why are we
mm,
taught that we are inherently wrong?
yeah,
God, like that's if you hear something enough, it's going to become a
of
belief.
course. Hmm.
Right. And so there's this fear around it. There's this belief that I'm wrong, etc. It is really hard to combat that. It's a great question of how you get out of that, because that's what creates so many deeply entrenched issues. And I hate to beat this. I don't know, I can use that metaphor, but I hate to like drive this home too much, but it's like challenging the thoughts, questioning where did that come from? Who taught you that? Is that true?
Mm.
Why is that true? Like why do you think that even your partner tells you that he loves to go down on you? Why are you questioning it? Like what happened in the past? Did you have a partner who wasn't as gracious and they went down on you for like a minute and they came back up, and then you got in your head like, oh my god, I must
Every
smell bad
time.
or taste bad or he hates me, I'm terrible, blah, blah, blah. Like, where did those thoughts come from? Or could you have had the thought of like, oh, he just can't wait to get inside me instead? Like, why are we not reversing it to the positive thought?
Mm.
And so that's where I try to come at it from with clients. Again, challenging the thoughts, unlearning. Um, but a large chunk of it also is like validating and being like, it totally makes sense that you think that. And that must suck to think, like, let's validate that experience in you. Where do you feel that? What part of you does that activate? Is that your inner child feeling like they're gross, where you taught that messaging in a
Yeah.
non-sexual context somewhere
Yeah.
else, so it's easier to access that belief when it's applied
Mm.
to your sexual body as well.
Mm. Because when I've talked to people that create content, that make porn, directors and actresses and actors and things, that one of the things they've all stressed sort of separately is that in their minds, and in the people that in their mind, that porn is entertainment and it's not education, and it's not somewhere to go to be taught things. Because if you think of most other things that we see, if you watch the Olympic Games, if we watch an incredible chef, we watch an incredible artist, we don't immediately berate ourselves for not being able to run 100 meters in 9 seconds, or to be able to cook an amazing meal, or to paint something is incredible. But we see somebody having sex for an hour and with an 18-inch penis and a hairless body and think, well, we should be like that. It's weird, isn't it? And we watch, you watch Mission Impossible. We don't assume we can literally, fly a plane with a keyring and a bent over paperclip. But with
Mhm.
sex, we sort of think, oh well, no, we should all be as good as that. It's really weird that that's the one thing that we feel informs us, I guess, because it does come down to the fact that we don't talk about it a lot, or much at all, really.
That's true. It is so true. And I think it's also because because it's such a literal behind
Yeah.
closed doors topic. Um, we're like, well, everyone else figured this out immediately, or so we think, like they must have. So I'm going to pressure myself to figure it out immediately too. Or
Mm.
on the other hand, I'm going to believe that my partner knows exactly what to do to me because they must know everything. And then you get issues like, and this is slightly changing this topic, but like issues of the man feeling bad in a heterosexual couple that he can't make the woman come. Where it's
Yeah.
like, when did he learn that he has to be the one to know her body better? Where does that come from? Yeah, we do just have all these thoughts about like this should come easy, and if it
Mm.
doesn't, then I'm bad and I'm wrong and I'm stupid and I couldn't make this work.
Mm.
Oh, and that causes so many issues too.
It does, and then some women, many women, depending if you believe what you read, etc., feel that they need to then fake that orgasm to make the partner feel good, and it's
Yeah.
yeah, you end up in this cycle, don't you? He or she, depending who you're with, is never going to think, well, I want to try something different. So, oh, that always works. Yeah, that always works. After a minute of going down quickly, a few pumps, she always comes. Yeah, that's great. I don't know what these other guys are talking about, and it's but I do think I think one of the things you've sort of talked about quite a bit is how, yes, the sex, pleasure, intimacy conversation is super important. But I do think one of the things you touched on, which I wanted to come back to, was the fact that actually the way we have conversations in the general parts of our life. Because, and I'll give a couple of examples. If you're planning to go out for a date night tonight, you want to go out for dinner, whatever, and you say to your partner, where should we go for dinner tonight? What do you feel like? If the partner says to you, I really feel like Mexican tonight, so okay, great, we'll go and do that. It's one thing. If the partner says to you, I don't mind, what do you think? And you end up this backwards and forwards. No, I don't mind. No, I don't mind. Oh my god, I just say what you want, really. And I think that translates to the desire thing. It's not necessarily saying what you want. It's almost more saying what you want to do. So tonight, this afternoon, this morning, what I really want to do is give you pleasure by kissing you all over. That's what I want to do. I want to stroke your back. I want to brush your hair. These are things that I want to do. So that'll give me pleasure, giving you pleasure. And I think that that feels like a almost a very different dynamic than either assuming you're either trying to I'm trying to sort of second guess what Sandy wants me to do that's going to give Sandy pleasure, as opposed to thinking, well, what do I want to do that I'm going to enjoy? Does that make sense? It just feels like the it's the same words, almost just in a different order. Like, here's what I want to do to give me pleasure, because I think, not me thinking, well, so here's what I think you want me to do to you, Sandy. They'll give you pleasure because you're enjoying me doing that. It's like, what? You end up with that. Well, if she knows and he knows, and it's yeah, that conversation feels very different.
Yeah. Uh, yes, great point, because a lot of clients will just like, they're like, well, again, it's that autopilot conversation of like, I've been doing this for years. I think this is what he wants. I want to make him happy, versus like, can you embody your own pleasure? Do you even know what you like?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And a lot of people don't. And
Mm.
especially women. A lot of women don't. And I'm very like, okay, you got to get these self to a solo sex situation. Like, figure out what you like, spend time with your body. And a lot of, I will say, women are fearful of doing that. They're hesitant to do that. And I think maybe part of it is this idea that um, maybe I don't deserve pleasure. Maybe I don't want to focus on what I want. So it's kind of scary, because then what if I don't get what I want? And that's opening myself up for rejection or letdown or failure or those other things. And so instead, I'm going to, like you said, do what they want in the bedroom and just focus on them.
Mm.
But then you get issues like the orgasm gap, and
Yeah.
women having sex when they don't want to just because it's going to please their partner. And
Yeah.
that leads to so many issues down the line as well. So it's like, that's so great to care about your partner's sexual needs. Of course, there's a place for that, but also, like, what do you want? Your partner wants you to have a good time.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
they want you to choose the restaurant, like you said. Like, what do you literally want? Like, I want to do what you want. You want to do what I want. There's so many conversations to have there. You're right.
Mm. So I talked to a really lovely person a few weeks ago, and she set up a sex toy company, the one massager, the massage thing, massager. Okay,
Yes.
and she was saying some of the letters they get back from women in particular when they've bought a sex toy. It could be a bullet, it could be a massage, it could be whatever. And then yeah, they said the letters that to get back sometimes makes her cry. So it's the ones literally saying it's the first time I've ever had an orgasm. I didn't know there were. I don't know, didn't know there were more than one type of orgasm. I thought, well, that was it. And it's just, yeah, she said it's just, yeah. But she also says some of the letters are, oh, I can never tell my husband I've got a vibrator or a bullet, whatever. It's like, how do you then bring that into the play really without sort of emasculating your partner? But she was saying, yeah, some of the letters where it's the first time the woman's finally decided to actually listen to what her girlfriends are saying or whatever and just explore their own pleasure. It's yeah. Yeah, she keeps the letters when it's a bad day. She gets them out and looks at them again. They're very, very
Oh,
positive.
that's so
Um,
sweet. Yeah,
mm,
I'll never really understand the whole like feeling emasculated thing. One, because I'm not a man, so I can't understand that. But also, like, shouldn't it be exciting that there's more options for you to pleasure each other with?
God,
And then
yeah.
it comes back to the conversation of like, it should be about pleasure instead of like, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to fuck you until you're satisfied. Like, it's like,
Yes,
I'm going to
absolutely.
engage in intimacy and pleasure with you. There are
Yeah.
many tools. I have my fingers, I have my
Mm-hmm.
genitals, I have my tongue, I
Mm-hmm.
have this toy, I have a pillow, like whatever. It's
Yeah.
just, there's tools.
It takes the pressure off, just, like I say, just having to perform really. And it's almost the word perform. It's like we're sort of going into this event or this sporting event or the circus, right? I'm going to perform tonight. We have all these things that can help you. All these, and there's some amazing sort of sex toys out there now for men and women, and for both at the same time. You think, well, gosh, why not? And as a man, you just think, well, it is different because I'm not being plugged in or being powered by batteries or whatever. I'm just here. It's different. It's a very different feeling, and it's yeah. What do you? One of the things that you must come across very sadly is people that have experienced some form of trauma or very difficult, very uncomfortable situation, and so that they have a very understandable mental block about relaxing and being intimate and feeling trust again. Really, how do you address that topic?
Um, Being unable to trust due to past trauma.
Yeah, really sort of get, because some people, and I completely understand, would feel uncomfortable perhaps talking about the trauma itself. They're not at that stage in their journey, but then yeah, then the other partner feels because they're not trusting me, and this is not what normally happens in a relationship. How do you help them to to slowly break down that feeling of mistrust or fear of intimacy, I guess.
Yeah, it is a slow, sometimes process.
Yeah.
Trust is built through consistency over time,
Hmm.
and trust in the therapeutic relationship is built through the same way and through
Yeah.
building a rapport and that non-judgmental environment of like, hey, this is a relationship. I'm not just here because you're paying me to be here. Like I actually care about what you're saying and I want you to get better, etc. And I want you to access the parts of you that you feel have been taken away
Hmm.
by that trauma, by that experience, etc. Excuse me. And so, a way that I like to approach trauma is through what's called cognitive processing therapy. And that is based on looking at the beliefs that were formed from the trauma. So, trauma is like, or PTSD from trauma is a disorder of non recovery. And so it's like two people could go, I always like to say, through like the same car accident and one could come out with
Yeah.
trauma and could not, right? So it's like, what is that person's brain telling them now?
Hmm.
So for a person to have gone through a sexual trauma, for example, maybe they came out with it with the belief of no men are trustworthy. I can't trust men. All men do is assault, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, then it's like, let's look at those thoughts. Let's validate the experience. Let's look at your maybe belief that you, so a lot of people unfortunately tend to go to the place of like, oh, this was my fault, or I
Mm.
caused this, or I'm bad. It's like, let's see where that came from, you know? And it's kind of that slow rewiring of neural pathways, etc., where it's like, think the new thought, um, see the
Mm.
event for what it actually was, and then rebuilding strength through maybe somatic therapy has to happen. I don't do that, but like I can refer out to that. It's like,
Hmm.
can you feel safe in your body again? Is there tension either through fascia or like energy work, working with chakras? There's a whole bunch of ways to do that. So it's like that slow, can I regain my body type of a thing. And then relationally, if they don't feel safe or trusting in their partnership, what's that relationship like? Do you have that safe, vulnerable space to emotionally connect to that person? Is there good communication? Do they understand your trauma? Are they re-traumatizing you in some sort of way? You
Yeah.
know, can what does that look like? And can we build a safe, supportive environment for you to feel like you can move past this trauma while honoring the person that you were and what it taught you and what it made you and what you can still be, bringing back that hope for the future.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's it's very very hard as a man, because I mean, 99% of sexual assaults on women, we know that, and it's very very hard as a man, no matter how empathetic, no matter how much I might read, how much I might hear, to really understand what it must feel like. And one of the things that I'm not sure what this is, maybe this is like the 50th episode or whatever of this podcast. Nearly every woman I've talked to has been through some form of sexual assault. Which first of all makes me feel terrible, and then secondly makes me completely realize that I would never have that sensation of walking across the college campus late at night and having that sort of fear. I can remember when I was younger, and I stopped drinking about 14 years ago. I've been sober for 14 years now. But I can remember when I was younger, sort of late teens, early 20s, going out and drinking and blacking out and having no idea how I got home. Literally no idea. Wake up in bed, I'd dressed or not dressed, whatever, and I completely black out. And I can't imagine how I would feel as a woman, really. I'm happy to embrace the fact that I don't understand how that must feel. But I think as a partner, if you're a partner of somebody who's been through an assault, or if you're about to start dating someone that's been through an assault, I think that key thing really is, as you said. Well, first of all, I think it's so important that people reach out to you or something like you just to have the conversation. Really, I'm not sure what it is in the US, but I think in the UK, I think the stats are for every 100 sexual assaults or rapes reports to the police, one results in a conviction. So 99 don't. 80 of those that they decide not to go ahead with or whatever, but still, so 100 reported. And these are the ones that are reported, never mind those that aren't reported. Another 100, one results in a conviction. And yeah, we still have judges that, in their heads are thinking about, is it what she was wearing? Was she asking for it? And you just think, oh my goodness. And I just think a lot of it has to come down to how we as men both, first of all, always call somebody out if it's a friend or a colleague or an associate, whatever, that might be talking in the wrong way, is misogynistic or whatever. Not calling out somebody that's attacked somebody is obvious, but just somebody that makes those odd comments or jokes, whatever. And then it's to make sure we just let the person that's sadly been through an assault feel that you're there for them, regardless of what. And it's got to be their journey. You can't make somebody see a therapist. You can't give somebody a timeline, right? In 6 months' time, you've got to be better, or you just got to accept we can never know what it feels like. And yeah, sorry, it wasn't. I
No,
just
I
realized
appreciate
speech
all
there. I don't
that.
know why. I don't know where that came from, but it just.
That's great. No, you said it with conviction. I really
No,
appreciate
and having and maybe it's having an 18-year-old daughter that's about to go off to
it.
college in the fall and thinking, oh my goodness, she'll be into sort of student bars where it's 5 shots for $5 or whatever. And yeah, if that was me when I was that age, I would just I'm sure I'll get home somewhere or another, or I'd end up sleeping on the college lawn or whatever. But yeah, just that fear that, oh my goodness, and how much that can affect your whole life, really. Yeah.
That's true. I mean, I think you make a great point, and to the fact that like I hope that men can just call each other out. Like I think
Mm.
it does. I don't know if this is accurate, but I feel like it does need to come from other men talking to men.
I think so. Yeah.
Where it's like, hey man, not cool. Just like
Yeah.
little comments like that over and over. And I think that you said this earlier that the sex education nowadays is more geared towards consent, which is great.
Yes. Yeah.
And so hopefully that conversation will just keep getting
Yeah.
amplified. And I
Mm.
think that, yeah, from within, the more we can just like call our buddies out and be like, actually, that joke kind of sucked. Like that's
Yeah.
gonna make people think that this is okay, and like even joking about it can lead to other places.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start for that.
I've taken a lot of your morning already, but this is two more quick questions, if that's okay. So one is, one is harder than the other, I guess. You can pick which one's a harder one. So the first one would be, so we talked about trauma and difficult situations, and sadly, some people, when they come to you, well, most people, when they come to you, are not saying, hey, everything's wonderful, I just wanted to tell you how great things are. They may well come to you and say, this is a very, very difficult situation. Either I've had trauma, or just it's a very, very difficult situation. I don't enjoy sex, etc., etc. How do you avoid, or what is your, I guess, what do you do to avoid carrying that trauma? So it can weigh very heavy. I think you want to be there for the clients. You want to show up and not sort of put a barrier between them. So you've really got to. You're a very giving person. It's very obvious even on the call. But how do you make sure it doesn't? You don't sort of absorb that. What do you do to protect your own mental and physical well-being.
Yeah, I so sorry, lots of thoughts. Great question, because yeah, I think that this is talked about often in the therapist community. It's like, how do we protect ourselves?
Mm.
I look at it like, when I'm with the client, I am very much attuned. I am holding it with them. We are holding it up together. Let me be with you in this space. Because you're right, it can't just be like, oh, that sucks. Like, it can't be like a
Yeah,
barrier between
that's like
you.
you're almost like you're on your phone, but not really on your phone. You're just thinking,
Yeah,
okay,
you're
what's
like,
for
oh,
dinner?
cool, what?
Yeah,
Yeah. And so it's very much that. And then afterwards, I am able to put it down, because the way I see it is like, I really, and this sounds like, I don't know what this sounds like, but it's like, I really trust the client to be able to hold their own.
yeah,
I see them 1% of their week, maybe less,
hmm,
whatever the percentage is. And it's like, if I were to leave thinking like, oh, I should hold that for them, I think that would come across in the sense that, like, oh, I don't think you can handle this on your own,
yeah,
versus like, no, I do think you can handle this on your own. I'm with you for this hour, and we're going to hold it together, and we're going to dissect it,
hmm,
etc. And then when I leave, I'm going to hold my own stuff, because if I don't hold my own stuff, that's going to pile up, and I'm going to be less able to show up for you during our hours together. So I think I'm just very aware that, the hour that I'm sitting with the client, I'm fully there. All my stuff is dropped, as it should be, as it needs to be,
yeah,
etc.
yeah,
As
yeah.
I'm fine with it. And then I'm like, cool, go forth. I will see you next week. We'll pick this up again together. And until then, it's yours. And I'll think about clients throughout the week, and I'll be
Hmm.
like, oh, they're doing that doctor's appointment today, or they're doing that today. Cool. But I do kind of have a very strict work-life balance, in the sense that I'm like, I got my own stuff, and this is important enough for me to drop, that I'm gonna shake it out, whatever I need. Maybe I'll like shed a tear or something, because it's like
Yeah.
the relief of like what we just experienced together when we were talking. But otherwise, I really just tap into like, let me put the work down, let me exercise, let me go on a walk, let me go dancing, let me veg out on the couch, whatever it needs to be.
Mm.
That's how I handle it.
Yeah, I think that, I think that's the whole thing with working with a professional like you. I think maybe there's a temptation to sort of think, right, okay, almost turn up and be like, right, so how are you going to fix me? And that's never, and it's not, it can't ever be that way, can it? Because unless you're, well, you've got to be the person that everybody's fix is already within them. It's just you're the one that can sort of help bring it out a little bit. That's what's different. Yeah, so that, it's not like going to a, yeah, it's not like going to an orthodontist having braces fitted. It's gonna, yeah, you still got to do the work yourself, really. And actually, I just had two questions. So, there's one really, really quick one. So, maybe think about this while you answer the last one. So, what was the biggest? What was the biggest positive surprise of the things that you experienced, enjoyed, explored after your marriage? And what do you think? Oh gosh, I really didn't know I'd enjoy that, and that was fabulous. That was the question. And then, but the final questions are going to be: so, what do you think the future holds for you? Are you in a Do you feel wholly comfortable where you are now? Do you see writing books in your future? Do you see expanding the practice? Do you see more study? What do you think the future holds for you?
Mm. So I guess to the first question of, I think that just play. Play is like my biggest value these days, and I try to play in so many ways. Whether that's going out dancing is my favorite way of playing. I
Mhm.
think that that's like what makes me feel most connected to like my inner child, and just like joy as like a concept.
Yeah.
And I think that play was definitely not a thing I did too much, or well anyway, before my rebirth genesis. Um, and so that might be my answer there. It's just like giving into play and joy, and like laughing and allowing myself to feel pleasure. So there wasn't like one thing, but I think it's just that general allowance. Yeah.
Yeah, play is almost one of those things we've got to lock in a cupboard once we stop being a kid, really. Cool. Or the kids, things they're called playgrounds. You don't have that for adults and things. And actually, when I rediscovered play was once I had children, realizing that I can skip down the road. I can sing at the top of my voice with the children. Nobody's looking at me. I can do it now, but just wow, I can skip along and I can wear flowers in my hair. And, well, I could do when I had hair, and I can
Yes.
I can do silly things. It's okay. And I think having
Yes.
that, realizing that actually play. Why not? You just play with how this feels, how this tastes, how this the sensation. Just play. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
And then the future.
Future.
Hmm.
I so let's see. I really want to, something I should have talked about on this call and is related to the play is
Mhm.
the idea of psychedelics. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, very much rediscovered myself in that way through those in my 30s as well. And tapping into like, what's the point? What's the point of everything? Like, why are we here? Like, I am nature, we are each other, type of a thing. We are all one, the oneness of it all. And so, one of my goals going forward, I mean, this is like a pie in the sky dream, but the more I say it, the closer I will be to it, I
Yeah,
guess.
manifest, absolutely.
Yeah, I would love to open a retreat for couples using MDMA. That's like my big old goal. But I definitely want to still work in the sex therapy and couples therapy realm, whether that looks like one-to-one therapy, which I love. I don't see myself really stopping that, but
Mhm.
if I were to decrease that in favor of more like educational or speaking type of things, where I can connect to people, or maybe coaching, but not in the life coach sense, but in the like, let me connect to people, let me help you through this, maybe write a book or make a game or,
Mm.
do something like that. Because I used to be a teacher. That was a thing I also did. So I really like the educational space and like presenting information.
Yeah, yeah.
So anything with that. But yeah, the retreat is kind of my big, what I'm
Mm.
aiming towards anyway.
That's super interesting. 'Cause I talked to a lady last week called Leslie Draffin, and she does a lot of somatic work, but a lot of her other work with couples is microdosing and mushrooms and things, and how that's and I've been fascinated by it for so long, and it's there are sites in the UK where you can buy mushroom spores and purely for research purposes, obviously, to investigate. So so that's something I absolutely want to explore because it just feels so natural. Literally, it is a plant, and it's been plants that have been used by indigenous populations for so many thousands of years, far better than the things our big pharma put out. I mean, the reason that big pharma don't put it out is because they can't commercialize it. As soon as big pharma finds a way to commercialize psychedelics, you bet they'll be out there. But I think there's yeah, everybody I've talked to about that said it's just a very different experience. And she does a couples retreat where they go away and she guides them through the microdosing and then megadosing and then a few other things and to see how it works and stuff. So
So she
yeah,
uses like psilocybin.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send you her link. She was
Yeah.
fascinating, and yes, I really want to at the end of our call, I thought, okay, I'm gonna have to come to Austin, Texas, to try it. That's where she is.
Oh, she's
But
awesome.
it
Okay.
just looked. But it's funny because you hear about some of the. I mean, say what you like about people like Joe Rogan or Theo Vaughn. You have people have very different opinions, I'm sure,
Hmm.
but they do eulogize about ayahuasca and psychedelics and mushrooms and dosing of things, and I think it will in my children's lifetime become a fairly commonplace thing to do. If you think of
Oh,
how
that's
we've been
cool.
destroying our brains with cigarettes and alcohol and all these things that are
Alcohol.
really bad for us, and
Yeah.
actually things like microdosing and mushroom and things must be very different. Yeah,
Mm.
you could
Yeah.
have told me that at the beginning. We could have had no whole hour
I
about
know.
that. But
I
no,
know.
I'll bring you back to talk about that. But I just think and it's interesting that people in this space, and I think it's that willingness to play and explore really in a safe way, obviously, and it's useful to be guided by somebody and it's useful to work with a professional, etc., but it does let us tap into that part of our brain that we can't. Because the one thing we've no idea how much of our brain we don't know, which is ridiculous. So we don't even know how much we don't know. So anything
Right.
that can help expand our consciousness even a little bit must be worth exploring.
Yeah.
So
And it does kind of take that courageousness to step out of like maybe what people were taught, like, oh, I should stay away from drugs or whatever. And
yeah, absolutely.
hmm
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's drugs, this umbrella. And the worst drug is alcohol.
right.
But yeah, and it's yeah. Well, sorry. Thank you so much. I was unexpected and nice ending. Thank you very very much. I really enjoyed that. You're really fascinating, and I enjoyed
Thank you.
everything you had to say.
You as well. I really appreciate this opportunity to chat and to also learn more about you and to be able to talk about a topic that I could talk on forever, for many, many hours.
You'll
Yeah.
have to come back. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.